Good afternoon and welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me at MarketSite is Chris Dearborn. He's the managing director of Nasdaq's Markets Intelligence Desk. My favorite hit of the week. It's a 2 o'clock hour on Friday, and that means we are ready to kick off the weekend. Chris, let's head into our weekly recap going into trade today. Not talking about Friday. It was a pretty orderly March for the markets, hitting all-time highs again.
Really have. You had the back end of earnings coming into here this week. You've seen a lot of companies kind of really knocking it out of the ballpark right here, and the markets have really marched higher. If you look at the Nasdaq Composite, you've had 8 consecutive days of higher closing highs. We'll see if today is going to be the 9th. It doesn't look so good right about now, but you know what? We still got an hour and a half plus left of trading. You never know what could happen in that last 90 minutes. Markets could rally on that, and we could see what happens here. But again, volumes have been a little bit lighter.
Right.
Even with the earnings coming through, we've been averaging about 5.4 billion shares a day on the consolidated tape. That's a little bit lighter than average. We'll average about 6.9 this year, but that includes that topsy-turvy February that we had. Actually, this is the lightest volume week of the year on average, next to the 4th of July week, which is only 3.5 days worth of trading.
All right, well, let's talk about opening into trade today. Stocks saw their largest drop since August, specifically the Dow Jones Industrial Average, but you had pointed out as well there's a divergence again with the small mid-cap names. In fact, as we're standing here now, who knows if the Russell has hit another high?
Absolutely. So the Russell is seeing a great resurgence here. When we came on tape before, only had about 10 points to the all-time high. More importantly, the S&P 400, which is the mid-cap index, and the S&P 600, which is a small-cap index, it all hit all-time highs this week, and they're seeing continued resurgence into those SMID names, which is giving some buoyancy to this market and really pushing us forward.
All right, well, it's been pretty interesting with some of the Nasdaq-listed stocks. We had Apple hit $1 trillion market cap last week. Right. This week, we had all that Tesla news come out there, and I want to go back to what you were saying with lower volume. Do you think a lot of these moves are amplified because there's less traders out there?
Absolutely. So with the Tesla news, it brought a lot of volatility to the stock and some uncertainty to the markets. But what really happened there is just one stock out of one stock doesn't make the market. One stock can carry the market here and there, but doesn't really make the market as a whole. What you're seeing is exactly what you said before. A lot of traders are on vacation. Remember, most banks have to send their traders on a 2-week mandatory leave here, and it'll either be this last 2 weeks or the last 2 weeks coming into Labor Day. And with that, you're going to see less traders, you're going to see lighter volumes. The earnings season is coming to an end right here. And with that, you're going to see amplified news on stories that don't really garnish that much.
And speaking of earnings, almost 90% of S&P 500 companies have reported, and the beat rate has been quite substantial, and seeing earnings growth of just about 23.5%.
Absolutely. He's had 452 members of the S&P 500 report so far. You still got a few more heavyweights coming up in the next couple of weeks. The average upside beat was over 5.5% for all 11 sectors. The only sector that didn't beat was the energy sector, which kind of leads us into another topic.
Exactly.
Here.
That oil, having an uptick today, but hit 7-week lows yesterday. So again, seeing that complex under pressure this week.
Absolutely. $66.14 is the low. We see a 7-week low there. The question is really, is that price point going to push its way to the pump or not for folks? And you're coming into the back half of the summer season, Labor Day driving season, for a weekend with people. Is that extra money going to flow through here? Which comes down to the consumer. If the consumer has more money in their pocket, are they going to spend it or not, and where are they going to spend it? Obviously, if they can save a couple of dollars on gasoline, that could be helpful to other consumer discretionary names.
All right. Speaking of the dollar, let's look at currencies and focus particularly with Turkey and the news coming out this morning regarding sanctions. And I think what's interesting with Turkey and what's happening with currencies in general, we have to remember that that's a NATO country, and we're starting to see their relationship shift more towards influence from Russia and China. So I think that's why you're getting some play with those defensive names, and really these currency moves are going to be key because it impacts all different facets of all different asset classes.
Right. The dollar index has really been a significant move over the last couple of weeks, and with that, you're seeing the rising interest rates as one of the main factors here for that. So what does a strengthening dollar mean? It means for the markets, it could be a top-heavy level for us here and put a cap on the markets as we look to grow, especially for companies that do business overseas.
All right, and let's wrap it up here. Going to the trading week ahead, it's going to be a busy one for you as the retailers start reporting. These are my favorite ones to talk about here. So what are you looking for when we've got the Walmarts, the Home Depots, the Macy's?
Right, you still got a lot of heavy hitters coming out. It's going to give a good look into what they're seeing on the tariffs coming through. We're still seeing how that plays out for a lot of companies, especially with John Deere at the back end of the week. You've got Walmart, and then on the tech side, you've got some huge guys. Cisco's coming out, Nvidia's coming out, and on the retail side, as you said before, plus all the consumer discretionary. Cisco Foods is going to be reporting, as well as Cisco. And with that, you're going to see a lot of different names come out. There's going to be a lot of focus on those names because there's not going to be a lot of economic news out next week, and it's not going to be, hopefully, we'll see what the other companies say, but ideally, what you're looking at is what have these companies done for the past quarter, and what is their guidance going to be going forward?
Right.
And with that, traders will make a decision whether or not these markets are going to push higher.
All right, and Chris, let's give a shout out to our listings team. Another 4 companies joining the Nasdaq family this week, bringing our total for 2018 to 123 new listings. How much have they raised in aggregate?
So we've seen $20 billion raised so far here on Nasdaq
Just
alone.
on Nasdaq.
You know, we're on pace for the strongest year since 2014, and we'll see if we can outpace that towards the end of the year. For the next couple of weeks, next week we're going to see 4-ish, hopefully, price. And then you'll see the bankers take the weeks off coming into Labor Day, as we mentioned before, that mandatory 2-week. We should see that pick back up in September, and we'll see how that carries into the back half of the year.
All right, well, thank you as always, Chris, for joining me, and thank you for joining me throughout the week. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.